Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. We are back for another Talking Tactics show with our football data expert, Gareth. And Gareth, great to see you, mate. And another celebration, as well as seeing you again, is that we've hit 1,000 subscribers, mate.
Yeah, it's amazing, mate. I mean, I think it's fantastic. The show's gone down really well. You know, you're talking just not just this one, but all the other ones as well. They go down so well. You know, we're growing big time.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and as I say, mate, you've been a massive part of that. And these shows, as we've said, it really go down well. And I know you're following. We keep talking about it on Twitter. It's just growing and growing because of the fantastic data that you show. And another eventful game on Saturday afternoon. Usually those Saturday lunchtime games, a bit hit and miss, but this one was an absolute humdinger and loads to go through, mate. Loads to go through.
Yeah, it was a good game. Yeah, it's a shame it didn't sort of end up again the way we wanted it to. But yeah, I mean, it was an entertaining game, especially I think if you were the neutral. But yeah, we'll have a look into it and see what we can find out today.
Yeah, well, let's get straight into it. You've got our usual slides, but one additional one in here, and then we've got loads of data to show you, loads of analysis in terms of still images, match of the day style to show you. So we'll move through. So passing networks here for Villa, not much in terms of passing network here, mate.
No, not much to see at all. I think Conta to Cash was the most common passing combination, as it were, and I think it wasn't very much at all. I can't remember how much it was in total, to be honest, but it wasn't a lot at all. Yeah, and the overall shape we can see is sort of quite a defensive one in itself, but I mean, I think that sort of is pretty self-explanatory, and it shows the way the game went almost.
Yeah. And was that what would you say in terms of the tactics? Was that a ploy by Emery to kind of sit back a lot deeper, or was it the fact that just Arsenal were just kind of wave after wave after wave of attack that were just forcing us back?
Yeah, I think it was probably, the latter, to be honest. I think we weren't in sort of like a low block or anything like that. We sort
Yeah,
of tried to sort of mid to low, if you like, and we were sort of, in the middle of our own sort of defensive third, if you like. So we were a little bit high and we tried to close space between the lines, and you can see how close sort of Louise and Kamara are to that defensive line on average.
yeah,
So you can see that spaces are trying to be closed, and those sorts of spaces there where Louise and Kamara are where Xhaka and Odegaard like to operate moving forward. So we'll go into that a little bit more later. But yeah, but you can see sort of the shape is that it makes sense that those sorts of positions where Kamara and Louise are is that we're looking at Odegaard and Xhaka, and that is the sort of scenario we're looking at here.
yeah, yeah. And then if we contrast that with Arsenal's passing networks, I mean, there's so much spread there. I know Gabriel and Saliba there with the kind of the most, but you've got Gabriel and Zinchenko, you've got White, Odegaard, Saka as a real triangle there. I mean, just so much movement of the ball.
Yeah, I think, and this is where we want to get to. This is
Yes.
basically what we are aiming towards. I mean, Arsenal in a 4-3-3 sort of, 4-4-2 sort of out of possession a little bit. But again, to point out the Xhaka and the Odegaard positions, this is what we're looking at. And this is why we're seeing things like Louise and Kamara in the positions that they were, because of the flip side of that is if we were to sort of overlay one over the other here, we would see that Louise and Kamara are pretty nailed on, onto Xhaka and Odegaard. And that's what Villa tried to do, but it just didn't work, and it was.
Mm.
We really struggled with the Zinchenko problem, just like a lot of other teams have done. But also Jorginho, he went underrated in this game. Didn't notice a lot about him, but yet he was the sort of the pinnacle for them almost.
Yeah, I said it in our last episode when we reacted to the game. Villa tend to struggle with that midfield, um, just that the one who dictates the pace. We can never quite know what to do with them. Like whether they're a big strong player like a Rodri or whether they're a smaller, slighter player like a Jorginho. We just don't know what to do with them. Do we go man to man with them or do we
No.
leave them? Like we always struggle with a midfielder that just sets the tone, sets the tone, sets the tone,
Yeah, and I think
and
that's part of it. And I think that's where the double pivot in Kamara and Louise sort of helps matters almost, because one can push onto the other, but you're really looking to sort of try and find someone who sort of plays in a number 10 position behind Watkins, who can sit on that defensive midfielder in that position, but someone who's got the ability to be able to do that. And I don't quite think we've sort of managed to do that at that time. And plus the positioning of the midfield. Yeah, I think you're right. Overall, we struggle to sort of decide in the transition, sort of how we go from attack to defence to then sit on that player and then vice versa. I think that's something we struggle with.
Yeah, it's, like Coutinho or Buendia. I mean, as I say, I do like Buendia, but I just find that he's all over the place. Like he should, in technically, he could do that role, and he's got that combative nature about him, but he wants to do too much of everything else. And
Yeah.
that's why managers haven't been that impressed with him, because he doesn't stick to one job.
Yeah, you've got to do you in that position. You've got to be able to, as an attacking midfielder, you've got to be able to to take on instructions, especially out of possession. Now is just as massive and important as it is. Anyone can do with the technical ability he's got with the ball at his feet. He can do anything, but you've got to be able to do the dirty work as well.
Yeah, yeah. We'll quickly run through our usual XG slide. So, I mean, the timeline kind of tells its own story, really. Just
Yeah,
again, wave after wave of attack in the second half, and it shows you, I think there's a similarity here that teams are like really coming at us in the second halves, and like I
yeah.
don't know whether you're seeing that as well.
Yeah, it's a common thing. I think if people were to go back through these talking tactics and from the start and see that, what we have been doing in the second half is always the same, but it was very similar under Gerrard. We saw a lot of this as well. We didn't see it in the first half. We didn't create a lot ourselves in the first half, but in the second half, we tended to come alive a bit more, and so did the opposition. Unfortunately, the former doesn't seem to be happening at the minute. We are not sort of responding in the second half, but opposition teams are.
Yeah, and also the obviously the last goal, the fourth goal, is just obviously ridiculously easy chance. But look at the quality of the chances, the amount that are inside the box as well. It's
Yeah.
not pointing to great defending and
Oh, I mean,
great sort of covering of each other.
well, that's right. And, we're conceding so many goals at home. It just shouldn't happen. You expect it, maybe you don't expect it. It shouldn't happen. But to concede in these sorts of goals, and I think it's 11 goals, isn't it, at home in 3 games?
Yeah,
Or something like
11 goals in 3 games. Yeah, obviously
that's
three at Man
it's not
City,
good. Yeah,
eight at home.
it's just not good enough. And to allow, even though, I mean, don't get me wrong, people shouldn't be under any illusion. Arsenal are a very, very good side. And
Yes.
they're up there for not up there for any other reason. But to score 4 goals from 3.28 xg as well, they've exceeded the xg and scored the 4 goals. And all right, the last one, you can that's just sort of a symptomatic of what you're doing when you're chasing the game. But again, it shouldn't happen. But it's disappointing to concede all these goals at home. It really is.
Absolutely. And then just our new one that we've got, the X threat game flow. I mean, yeah, if you're looking at a one-sided game, you've found it really. Even though it was kind of pulsating and it felt like Villa were in it, ultimately looking at
Yeah,
the quality
I
of the
think.
chances.
Yeah, I mean, individually, I think our highest player for XT was actually Emi Martinez, and that was
Yeah.
purely for the fact that he was delivering balls into dangerous areas on a few occasions. For Ollie Watkins, don't get me wrong, his XT was very, very low, but he was the highest member of that because
Noticed
of those
that.
balls he played
Yeah.
under. Yeah, we just
Yeah.
couldn't get our foot on the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I like you say, people kind of have their reaction straight after the game, think, oh, we've gone toe to toe, we've just lost. But when you look at it like that, I mean, to concede the goals that we conceded, to give up that amount of territory, to give up that amount of possession, you're going to really struggle to win the game ultimately, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think, but we said it in the last game, and we said it against Leicester as well. You're at home. You're at home. You should be able to at least impose yourself against Arsenal or whatever. But even against Leicester, you're at home. You have to impose yourself more on the game. We've got the players to keep hold of the ball. Why are we not doing it?
Yeah, totally agree, mate. Totally agree. So, yeah, I'll get that. I'll get our match of the day style stills up that Gareth, you do a fantastic job at collating for us. Please do, as we're doing this, please do leave a like on this video. Please do share it, help us spread the word to others. As I say, we've also hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you are watching and you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button to help us really grow the channel. We've talked a lot about kind of what Arsenal did to combat us and pull us into different places. You've got a fair few slides to highlight. Firstly, looking at our defensive shape and what Arsenal did to kind of combat it, mate. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I could have gone on and on and on, about different sort of situations over different periods of time and minutes and etc. etc. But I just sort of wanted to highlight basically what and explain what most people sort of are interested in, and that's the Zinchenko issue. Now, this is obviously, people know that this is a thing that Pep Guardiola used to do with Cancelo, and sort of Arteta has started to implement that himself. And again, Villa have problems in midfield because they don't seem to be able to sort of solve problems on field. They must have known that Zinchenko was going to do this. So initially we set up in a 4-3-3 in a defensive shape. You could argue that Coutinho did drop off, and we'll see that next. But Villa wanted to do this 4-3-3 because they knew that Arsenal would end up with a back three. They knew that we could probably put a bit of pressure on that back three, and our midfield could probably cope with Zinchenko's positioning a little bit better. But it wasn't to be. And we can see sort of in the second that now we've dropped into a 4-4-2. Emery must have realised this. This was after about 25 minutes. He started to realise, and there was a clear shift in shape. Coutinho did start to drop off more in a left-sided sort of midfield role. McGinn on the right of that midfield, and Watkins and Buendia up top. But so we've kind of solved that problem by adding an extra man sort of across midfield. The trouble is, you've still got Zinchenko moving into the centre of midfield, and now we've dropped off. We've dropped off even more.
Yeah,
So not only
my problem is that if Kamara goes with, is it Odegaard here?
Yeah.
Look at that gap that you've got in there, and then all it needs is whoever that is. I don't know if that's Xhaka or that's
Jorginho.
Jorginho.
Well, this is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to stretch you out so that they can allow play. And you've got so much movement from Xhaka, Odegaard in the. Jorginho is pretty rigid in his position because he's the receiver of the ball, so he's there to get that ball and play out to whoever he sees fit. But we just didn't cope with it again. We just didn't cope with it.
To me, what you would like, just as a layman or a coach of a semi-professional football, but to me, I would have tried to have stepped up 5-10 yards here and just squeezed up the pitch a little bit more, because Nketiah's not really fast, and also then it would allow you to kind of shut those gaps off. But here you're just allowing yourself, you're giving yourself too much distance to cover. Like if that ball goes back here, Watkins has got too much distance to cover. So that's what I would have tried to do.
Yeah, you're correct. And we'll see that a bit later on, that they did actually do that, Villa. They did actually try to sort of step up a few yards and leave little space between the lines. But the first half, it wasn't good, was it?
Yeah, no. There was a lot of problems there to solve. So we're looking at these overloads, like we said in the passing networks here. Before we had like White, Odegaard, Saka, just that triangle, and it was so obvious to see that they're so well coached, but it's so hard to play against, and the options that they had on the ball were plentiful, like you can see here.
Yeah, the good teams are always going to try and sort of entice you over to one side, so you've got plenty of players over one side, and then do a quick switch of play. But Arsenal could have done this on multiple occasions, but they didn't choose to do it. But again, Zinchenko, instead of being inside, he's sort of there. He is in. You can see him in the centre circle there.
Yeah.
But then now you've got the stretched width of Trossard over on that far right hand side. This back four is far too narrow. They're trying to shift over. They're not sure whether to shift over to one side. They're not sure whether to sort of stretch out. There's multiple balls that he can play. What we're trying to get here is that the fullbacks and the wider midfielders of Villa have to be closer together. They have to be. When Ramsey, as I've written here, Ramsey has stepped out, so he's allowed in just a split second. He's allowed that movement. He's pushed out, and Odegaard is going to run into that space. And I think in the next slide we'll basically see him sort of receiving the ball, and there he is. He's moved into that space. Jorginho's played the pass, and all of a sudden now they're at Villa, and he's got 3 passing options that he can play to. That's not good enough.
And it's the body shapes as well. Again, we talk about body shapes. Like if we go back to the first one, Moreno's closed off from Saka, McGinn's closed off from his man here, from Trossard, and I think the centre backs aren't too bad. Maybe Constance slightly on his heels, but that's not too bad. And as you say, Ramsey stepped out. But if you go back to this one here, like Moreno hasn't changed his position. He can't see anything that's happening behind him. And then the Mings has come out to obviously come out to press, and now there's a huge gap in behind. And as I say, you've got that overload here because Cash again can't see because he's coming into
Yeah.
the man here,
Yeah.
and you can't see anything behind him either.
No. I mean, a good coach will always tell you as a fullback, you're facing out, you're running back, you're facing in, you're running forward. So you've
Yeah,
got to be aware of what's outside of you. So if you're facing out, you've got to be then prepared to run back because you
yeah,
know that Saka is going to be Moreno, sorry, has to be facing out. He
yeah,
can't be facing in that thing. He's got no danger that he's looking at there. He
yeah,
needs to be aware of what's behind him. So does Cash, really. But the
yeah.
problem is that Mings has stepped into midfield for some very strange reason. He's stepped into midfield to try and win the ball. He doesn't have to do that. He's got two midfielders central to do that. He doesn't need to do it. So we've created our own problems again there.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, something that's caused huge kind of debate and annoyance really is the concession of goals from set pieces and almost a carbon copy of the Stevenage goal. I mean, what is going on with our set piece
Yeah,
defending, Gareth?
yeah, we haven't learned our lessons here. Basically, as soon as as I've written in the text here, as soon as that ball goes out to Saka, that defence has to push up to that line. Even if he crosses it, he's got to allow that space because that gives Martinez at least 10 yards to come and collect that ball should he need to.
Mm,
But they don't even do that. Even when it comes out to Zinchenko, they are about at that black line. When he's just about to shoot, they're about that black line. The issue here is numbers. You can't, if you've got everyone back, they are going to squeeze you in. So
mm,
leave a man up. You can do that as an outlet. At least that takes one away. But you've got to be pushed out.
yeah,
Mings is telling Watkins to push out there. You don't need to be all on top of the goalkeeper because that's what they want you to do.
yeah. I really don't understand this in modern Premier League football is why teams don't leave one striker out or even two. It used to be when I played, if you left a striker up on the halfway line, they'd have to leave two defenders back. And then
Yeah,
also, you haven't got anyone on the edge of the box for
no.
second
But
ball. What?
the,
I don't
the
understand this.
No, I agree with you. The thing is, it's a numbers game. So, a set piece coach will decide whether does he need more in the box to defend. A lot of these teams now like to have two men at the near post. So, if it misses one, then the second can clear. That's Mings's job and Watkins's
Yeah,
job. Sort of sporadically. But yeah, you're right. At least leave a man up. But you've got to be on the edge of the box there. You
yeah,
can't all be within there. And to have two people right over there and on the short corner and still have two spare on the edge of the box, it all comes down to a numbers game.
yeah. Well, even if Mings is getting his, I always think as well, even if Mings, who's the main header of the ball, that's fine, right? We used to have that when I was coaching Garth Town. We used to have that. The best header of the ball would be staying free. But even if he heads it out, who's he heading it to? Who's going to contest the ball?
Exactly.
Um, I, it just baffles me, and so
Yeah,
many teams do it.
yeah,
And
it
also
needs.
the goal. This area is the goalkeeper's area. So for me, if I was the one, if I was the goalkeeper, I'd be like, well, get out of my area, get out
That's
of my
exactly
zone.
what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. They need to be out there so that Martinez has got that. I've seen a lot on Twitter today about these sort of assessing Villa leave space at near posts and blah blah blah. It's fine. We only had a problem with that on a Rodri goal at Manchester City. There's nothing wrong with that because they've got two players there who can head that ball away. It's just the way the opposition have set up. So like I say, it all comes down to numbers. But yeah, they've got to push up. That space has got to be there because Martinez will come and catch that. We know that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
space has got to be there. They just
Yeah.
need to push up.
Yeah. And then obviously the sickener really. The Jorginho goal, but again, avoidable. You've got 5 players here in a line. You've got what 10 yards at least of space. Yeah, I don't know. It's
Again, they've got pushed in. They've got pushed
yeah,
in, and they've sort of been bullied back into their own sort of 6 yard, 18-yard box. But you know, you can say what you want. They've got to come out. They've still got to come out and block that. But at the end of the day, it's offside.
yes,
It's not a goal.
yes,
It's not a
no,
goal. In any sort of, I think I've seen various examples over the last few days since the game about things that have happened, but it's offside. It's not a goal.
yeah.
It shouldn't have been allowed.
Did it get referred to VAR?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, and I think they just
Uh,
sort of obviously decided that Martinez said he could see it all the way, and obviously we've seen interviews sort of today that he said that he's not going to blame VAR, he's not going to blame officials. It's his own fault. Well, it's not his fault if he can't see the ball coming towards him, which he couldn't.
well,
And
offside is offside, isn't it?
yeah,
And
he
you
should
can
be
see it with
he
the
should
eye
really
line.
be changed.
Yeah,
I'm a bit disappointed that he's come out and said that, really, because I
Yeah.
think he should be challenging officials and sort of, not sort of backing them up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't see there's a lot of that you mentioned it the other week about Villa being a bit too nice, and if that had been the other end of the pitch, Arsenal would have been round that referee,
Yeah.
crowding round him, and that can influence decisions,
Yeah,
and we don't do it enough.
no, it seems to be this acceptance
Yeah,
almost at a minute that we're going to concede and we're going to win. When oh well, it's hard luck. We've had hard luck go against us, but you make your own luck.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then obviously the first goal for Arsenal was again caused a lot of debate about Tyrone Mings. Is it Emmy at fault here? Is it Mings should have headed it out of play? Like
Yeah,
what are we looking at here?
this is 100% Tyrone Mings' fault. I won't hear anything different. I think Emi Martinez has given him a call.
Mm,
I do think that because of the way that Martinez is set, it looks like he's been given a call. Now, whether Mings, whatever he chooses to do with it is up to him. If he ignores that call, he's still got to head that ball out. That ball has
mm,
got to be headed out. There's no way on God's green earth that ball should be headed back into that penalty area. But no matter what he's seen, it doesn't matter. Emery, don't tell me that Emery wants him to sort of regain possession and play
yeah.
out and all this and all that. That
Exactly.
ball,
That's yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like yes, fair enough. Emery wants teams to play out from the back, but come on,
no,
like you've got to use your head. There's a decision making, like literally use your head. There's a decision
yeah,
making process here, and he's not expecting you to play in and around your box in this situation.
no. This is Sunday league stuff. I mean, people can say about 50 pence head and everything else. He's purposely tried to head that back to Emi Buendia.
Mm,
Why? Why has he decided to do that? And that's conceded a goal. Again, decision making in key moments is vital.
mm, yeah, yeah. And yeah, just a couple of like potentially finishing on a positive, Gareth, because we want to end this segment on a positive.
We do.
But we talk about our build-up shape, and when we did get the ball, some of the little like kind of sequences of play that were potentially quite nice.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think this is the the build-up.
This is the build. Yeah, this is looking at kind of the double pivot and phase of play. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Sorry.
mean,
Yeah,
as we saw with the Coutinho goal, we can play. We've got sort of the patterns of. There's not many patterns of play. Granted, it's a bit of a stretch to try and find them at times, but our initial shape is okay.
mm,
We're back to the double pivot here, so we can see that we're trying to. Luis is trying to then occupy Granit Xhaka in Arsenal's 4-4-2 defensive shape. And we're still trying to get Coutinho and Buendia in those number 10 positions, similar to what Arsenal do with Odegaard and Xhaka. So it's a very sort of similar sort of in and out of possession shape, if you like, from both sides. There was a lot of similarities, apart from the
yeah.
Zinchenko thing, obviously. But you can see that the position is what we're trying to take, but it's almost a bit predictable.
Yeah, I was going to say, do looking at the way that Arsenal played, and again, like you said before, it's what we want to try and get to, and we'll get to that Coutinho goal because that is kind of again, a summary or a pinnacle of what we can do. But do you find that the movements aren't dynamic enough? Like if you
Yeah.
looked at Odegaard and you looked at Xhaka, I know it comes from like trusting that the ball's going to get there, like the coaching and getting used to it. I know it comes from that, but look at just that movement there. Coutinho's kind of just jogging. Buendia's, it's like they're not quite sure what to do.
Well, no,
Whereas
I
whereas
don't.
Arsenal were like,
No.
bang, yeah,
I think against Arsenal, you're obviously just like you are against Manchester City. You're wary of being caught sort of on the counter or losing the ball, but
yeah, true,
that's about being brave on the ball, receiving,
yeah,
turning. And I think Coutinho probably did that reasonably well. I think
yeah,
he was probably
yeah,
the better of the two. But it's more about sort of bravery and being able to sort of, because if Coutinho drops 10 yards, receives that ball, Mourinho's free on that left hand side. He could
exactly,
play through the
exactly,
lines and we're
yeah,
there. It's
yeah.
about being brave on the ball.
Yeah, and like I said, a time when we were brave, we have the goal and really good play from Kamara and committing defenders and yeah, just a lovely goal that we'll talk through.
Yeah, we saw the goal. It was a lovely team move that sort of started basically on our edge of our own 18-yard box. So I
Yeah,
mean, you know, we moved the ball up the field well, sort of played through the lines a little bit, and Coutinho managed to find himself inside, run off the back of Odegaard, and yeah, managed to find himself in a decent position, to be honest. And as we can see here, the ball from Kamara inside Mourinho. yeah, it's a good move, and we can see that Buendia and Watkins are trying to sort of get players back into the box to push again, just similar to the ways that we don't want players to do in our box. We're actually pushing players into their box. McGinn's in a decent position as well here.
Yeah, yeah, and then a nice little dummy from Buendia, and
Yeah.
yeah, lovely
And again, it
finish.
comes through sort of again. We've backed Arsenal's back four into their own sort of 18-yard box, which is what you want to be doing at that sort. And the cut back, and then Coutinho obviously sort of gives the keeper the eyes and sort of rolls it to the other side.
Yeah, and we're all happy days. We're all buzzing. They're 2-1 up, and yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah,
we
it's
can't
so
hang on.
frustrating. It's so frustrating because they're a good Villa are a good side. People shouldn't knock it because they are a good side, but it's just that sort of cohesion that's got to be sort of sorted out a little bit. But I think we're sort of on a sort of a very steady path towards the summer, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah, and again, like just finishing off. This is kind of what I said in the last pod, and I know we've talked around kind of the similarities of the records, the fact that the manager is the players are the players regardless of the manager, so they'll continue to bring about these results. And it kind of feels like Groundhog Day almost, that we're waiting for this preseason, and you know, I just hope that they do really back Emery and allow him to bring in and get rid of who he needs to, because
Yeah.
we're going to be in the same. I fear that we're going to be in the same situation next season.
Yeah, the trouble is that you're right. Groundhog Day is probably a good way of putting it because you're bringing in a new manager. You give him a little bit of money in January. He can't get what he wants, so he goes to the summer. He gets some of the players that he wants, but then he comes out, doesn't get all of it. That doesn't work, and then by November we're sacking him, and we're and then we're sort of, like you say, Groundhog Day. We're going over the same thing over and over again. But let's just hope the summer. I think it needs to be. You need to sign some big players. And I'm not
Mm.
talking sort of the likes of Haaland. It's just that sort of level. I'm not talking that, but one below. We've sort of the likes of Williams at Bilbao, for example, Pau Torres. I think those players really need to come in, and I think we need to there needs to be proper hard competition for places.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. Now, 3 or 4 big matches to come, mate. Everton away. It's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy, but I fancy us at Everton.
Yeah.
He says.
Yeah, no, well, I'm going to the game as well, so fingers crossed we get a win. But yeah, it's they've obviously off the back of 2 wins out of 3. They're not scoring many goals. It's kind of expected from Sean Dyche coming in and settling them down, making them hard to beat, and scoring goals from set pieces.
Yeah.
But I think if we can get those passing combinations, if we can get those movements working and get those players on the ball, we should have a positive result, and
Yeah,
then
definitely. I think.
we're looking again a little bit more rosy.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all about it's the Villa thing, isn't it? We sort of get battered at home by Arsenal and then end up sort of maybe getting a result at Goodison Park. You just don't know. But I fancy us to get something there. But it's a difficult. It's still again, it's a difficult thing. We expect so much, don't we? But
Mm, mm. Exactly. Well, Gareth, once again, thank you so much. We will be back to analyze that game next week. Fingers crossed, it's after a victory, because we've done three defeats in a row. We could do with a we could do with a change in tone. Um, Again, mate, thank you so much. Where can everyone find you?
yeah,
As I say, your following is growing all the time on Twitter.
yeah, you can find me at that Karate JC. Get in contact if you want any of the slides or any sort of anything like that we've seen today. Just get in touch. Give me a shout.
Yeah, and we will be, as we teased last week, we will be doing a show coming up soon, live show with analysing various points of the season, and also answering your questions. So please do get in touch with us at Villa Park Pod. DM us, just get involved in the chat. Anything you want Gareth to analyse, anything you want him to look at, and we'll get that done in a show in the coming weeks. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone for watching. Please, as I say, please do hit the like button. Please do hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. And as always, please remember, we all follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.